is LBC. From Global, leading Britain's conversation, The Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. Well, it's that man Trump again. And guess what method he used to send out his bolt from the blue today? Was it an article in a leading newspaper? Was it a big speech? Was it a press conference? No, of course it wasn't. It was all done on Twitter. And like a bolt from the blue, shortly after breakfast Washington time, Trump sent out the following tweet. After consulting with my generals and military experts, please be advised that the United States government will not accept or allow transgender individuals to serve in any capacity in the US military. Our military must be focused on decisive and overwhelming victory and cannot be burdened with the tremendous medical costs and disruption that transgender in the military would entail. Thank you. There was absolutely no warning that this was coming at all. And many would say that, in fact, he's been embroiled over the course of the last couple of weeks, firstly, in a fairly open public disagreement with his own Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, but also, of course, Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, giving evidence and continual stories about whether or not he and his team were linked in any way to Putin's Russia. So they have been fairly beleaguered over the course of the last week or so, and suddenly this happens and there's a whole new row. Now, I think it's very important for everybody just to get a handle on what the background of this is. The Pentagon only ended its ban on openly transgender people signing up and serving in the US military in the late summer of last year. So up until 2016, a transgender person was not allowed to join the military. Those that were in already have been allowed since that date to come out openly as being transgender. And of the 2 million people that are serving in the US military, that includes the reserves, and it's tough to get numbers, it looks like the best estimate is about 4,500 people that are now serving are transgender. They didn't join as transgender, but they are now transgender. But in this month of July was to begin the process of actually accepting transgender people into the military. And the conditions that the Obama administration put down is that the people have been stable in their preferred gender for at least 18 months. But as this deadline approached, the Defence Secretary, James Mattis, said, no, we're going to put a further 6-month delay on this. We're going to find out and get more expert opinion as to whether this will be a good or a bad thing for the US military. So I guess that people were thinking that there wouldn't be any answer to this until December. And strangely, the Defence Secretary, James Mattis, the General, Mad Dog, as he's known, is actually on his summer vacation at the moment. So he was away. So Trump did this, and I want to ask you to comment on this. And I'm particularly keen, given that we've got a growing number of people in the USA that are following this show, to get your feedback and your response to. And I'm asking you, is Trump's decision, is it based on the need for military efficiency, or is it simply pure, outdated prejudice? Let me know what you think by calling 0345 6060 973, by texting me at 84850, and probably from America the easiest is to tweet me on @LBC, not forgetting the hashtag Farage and LBC, and of course you can watch the show live on LBC's Facebook page. Mark in Rugby, is Trump right? Are transgender people a distraction? Are they potentially expensive to the US military? Or is this just pure old-fashioned dinosaur prejudice?
Right. I'd say he's made the wrong decision, but for the right reasons. I agree with some points, like the US military or any military shouldn't have to burden the cost of like transgender transitions. They shouldn't have to pay for the procedures. And obviously there's going to be a lot of downtime where people are recovering from these procedures. So I'd say that he's right in that respect, but these people have a basic right to serve. I think that these people, they're going to know that they're going to get stick serving in the military. So for them to want to serve in the military, despite the fact they know they're going to get this amount, the amount of stick that they will get day in, day out, shows the resolve, shows how much they want to serve.
Yep. So on the one hand, Mark, you're saying these actually are pretty brave people because they know they're going to get a bit of a rough time. But yet on the other, you're saying that it could be expensive and actually it could be disruptive in terms of time away.
Yes.
So which side? So Mark, you've put both sides of the argument really rather well. I have to say that. But which side do you come down on ultimately?
Ultimately, I'd say that Trump is wrong and they shouldn't be banned. I would put a ban on the military paying for these procedures.
Yep.
People should bear the burden themselves.
Yep.
When I was in the army, I wouldn't expect the army to pay for anything for like this at all. I mean, I felt guilty for claiming back for meals and things like that. So, no, I wouldn't expect the military.
What years did you serve, Mark?
Between 2004 2014.
Okay, because in fact, I mean, and a lot of people listening won't realise this, but of course, in Her Majesty's Armed Forces, up until the year 2000, gay people were banned from serving, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you joined very shortly after that, and did you, and let's sort of broaden this out a little bit, you know, in terms of social change, did you, in the years that you served, see any difficulty with gay people serving in the army?
None. Absolutely none. Only from the prejudices of others, but the individuals themselves.
Yeah.
It had no bearing on them carrying out their duties day to day at all.
Fine, Mark. Excellent call. Thank you very much. Virginia tweets me and says it has nothing to do with prejudice! ! Roy in Tiverton, is Trump right or is he wrong?
I think he's correct, Nigel.
Do you? Tell us why.
I think there's this ever-increasing push by cultural Marxism in our society to dither the line of morality or whatever it is, you know, that you want to draw the line. It's continuously stepped on, i.e. they're making everything the norm. There seems to be no bound to it all. Every establishment that we have, it's in our police now, it's in our education, it's in our medical services, it's in our politics, it's everywhere. The majority of the whole media are cultural Marxists. And I think it's just, not that I have anything personally against transgender or gay people. I have children who are gay.
Right.
That's not the point. The point is that where do you draw the line?
Well, I suppose, Roy, that and the question I'm asking is this a decision based on military efficiency or prejudice? I mean, surely, Roy, the answer would be whatever one's personal views or perhaps religious views on this subject might be, if transgender people serving in the military didn't in any way affect the efficiency or performance of the military, then would it matter, Roy, in that situation?
No, not at all. But that's not really the issue. My issue is the blurring of the lines of normality. Right,
the sort of change of definitions of things across society.
Across the whole of our Western societies, and it is a pariah on our societies, the destruction of the family, and so on and so on and so on and so on.
Right, so you see this as another piece, ultimately what Obama did, you see as another piece of cultural Marxism.
Exactly.
Right, thank you very much indeed for your very clearly put point of view. James in Clapham, good evening.
Hi, Nigel. How are you today?
I'm fine. Now, do you have military experience, James?
I did. I served from 1989 to 1997. I went to 6 tours. I went to Bosnia, Rwanda, Sierra Leone, the Gulf, Iraq.
Wow.
And basically, I've got no problem serving with transgender. One of my officers became transgender. And let me tell you this, I had no problems at all taking orders from her as she was then. And let me just tell you one thing. It always seems to be the cowards, the ones who have never served, never gone on tour, are the ones that got the problem. Let me tell you this. I'd have no problems sharing a trench with a transgender person. There is no medical cost to it. Yes, the military take it on, but let me just tell you something. These people deserve it. They've served their country. They put their life on the line. And it's always the cowards, the ones who are standing back, who have never served, are the ones who've got the problem.
And so so what year was this when you had a transgender officer, James?
Well, a transgender officer started 1997, started going through.
But in theory, that was against the British Army recruitment practice, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. They were just phasing out the homosexuality at that time. Right.
So you saw that transition, as it were, going on as well?
Yes, I did. And let me tell you this. The bravest people I stood next to, when I've served with gay people, and let me tell you this, I had no problems with them. If they are prepared to stand next to me fighting, they are my brothers. End of story.
Yeah, no, I understand that point. So you think Trump is wrong? You think the transgender people are not disruptive in the US military?
How can they be disrupted? There is no disruption. What they will then serve with the ladies. They will use the ladies as a requirement. They will serve on the front line. They will put their life on the line for their country. Mr. Trump and the rest of the bigots need to understand. I'll take what you say when you stand there and take fire like we did.
Yeah, well, James, you've certainly served in a lot of theatres. You must have a fairly big row of medals, I would have thought, given all of those places that you've been. And James, thank you for your phone call and the point that you put, I thought, there with really quite extraordinary passion. Right now you're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC, and it's 7:15.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Vegan campaigners are free to brand British milk production as inhumane after a ruling by the advertising regulator. Elliot in Wanstead.
Every cow that you see grazing free, there is always another that is severely abused and tortured.
If what he says is correct and he has witnessed animals being tortured, then that should be stamped out. That is not what happens around any of the farms that I know of.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast, every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
News just in. An alien spacecraft has fallen from the sky and landed in Little's car park, so it's closed until NASA get here.
Madam, come with us, please.
Get off me!
Some will do whatever it takes to get to Lidl first. This Thursday there's offers on DIY, men's fashion and more while stocks last. Lidl. Big on quality, little on price. Subject to availability and may vary selected stores.
Welcome to New Sky Sports. Now with new channels dedicated to the sports you love.
Final act then of an unforgettable drama here at Trent Bridge.
The history books rewritten by 12 heroes in Chicago.
Lewis Hamilton wins the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
Feel every moment with new channels dedicated to the Premier League, cricket, golf, football, plus our dedicated F1 channel. New Sky Sports. Feel it all.
An amazing kitchen, an amazing bathroom, an amazing hallway. At Amazing Tiles, our range of porcelain, ceramic and bespoke tiles can make any home amazing. Right now, buy 5 metres or more of plain tiles and get a third off the retail price. Visit our showroom and warehouse at Park Royal Road, London, or call 0208 83 84 900. Make your home amazing at amazingtiles.com.
We've been thinking about Tom.
The cat.
And how, whilst he's remembered to buy cat litter, he's forgotten his bank card. But instead of worrying about how he's going to pay for it, he's simply wondering if a dog might have been a better choice of pet. That's because at NatWest, we've already thought about the left bank card at home scenario. It's why we created Get Cash, so you can withdraw money from our cash machines with just our mobile app. NatWest, we are what we do.
Take out up to £130 a day as long as it's within your withdrawal limit. App available to customers with online banking and a UK number.
Landlords, Direct Line guarantees to beat other insurers' renewal premiums for the same cover. Can your insurance do that? Switch to Direct Line Landlord. New customers only. Qualifying criteria apply. Underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
Stub out your last cigarette and celebrate with a holiday in the Caribbean. London South Bank University is looking for smokers to take part in an exciting new research project in the capital. You'll be paid to take part, and along with the chance to become a non-smoker, there's a Caribbean holiday and more to be won. So hurry. Search online for LSBU Stop Smoking Study. That's LSBU Stop Smoking Study. Over 18s only. T's and C's apply.
There's no other way. Smarter,
sleeker and better than ever, the UK's favourite crossover SUV has had a serious makeover. Experience the new Nissan Qashqai at Westway. Be quick and get a £1,500 finance deposit contribution with representative 3.99% APR finance subject to status. Come and test drive the ultimate urban crossover for yourself. To find your nearest Westway, you know what to do.
Google Westway Nissan today. The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
It's just a normal day in the Trump White House. The president, without referring to anybody, decides on Twitter he's going to say that all transgender people are barred from the US military. And, of course, there has been some pretty explosive reaction. Joe Biden, the former vice president, saying every patriotic American is qualified to serve, should be able to. Of course, John McCain, who notionally is on the same side as the president, has attacked him and said that he shouldn't govern by Twitter, as if that's going to stop him. And we appealed for Americans, and you're coming through. Mason Hyatt says, as an American, I think Trump is right. The military is a fighting force, not a place for social issues. So let's just go back to exactly what Trump said. I think this is actually really rather important in this debate. So he announces that there'll be no place for transgender people at all in the US military. And his reasoning is, we cannot be burdened with the tremendous medical costs and disruption that transgender in the military would entail. Thank you. Well, perhaps, folks, he has a point. Why do I say that? I say that because Obama actually did put into place a rule that the military would pay for the medical treatment related to gender transition, and that process started in October of last year. So he is right, there is a cost to this. At the moment, as we understand it, there are 4,500 people serving in the US military who have come out as transgender. Now, whether this is a huge bill or, in relative terms to the defence budget, a very small bill, perhaps he has a point about cost. Does he have a point about disruption? I mean, I get a text here that whilst undergoing surgery, they can't fight. But that comes across as prejudice, says Cindy. So, on cost, he does, I think, have a point. And there are several Republicans who are trying through Congress to get amendments passed to say that actually, if people want gender reassignment surgery, the military should not pick up the tab. So I think he does have a point with both of these things. The question is it actually a big enough point? Is it really that disruptive in an army, if you include the reserves, of 2 million people? And I'm going to Kansas in the States, and I'm going to Richard. Richard, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. How are you?
I'm well. Now, I hear that you're an ex-military man yourself.
I am.
And so what do you think, Richard?
Well, the military is not a place for social experiment or emotional attachment to some issue. It's a fighting force, and we're there to protect the country, uphold and defend the Constitution. And it's been my experience that anybody who is gay or women do not belong on frontline troops. They just cannot withstand the rigors of combat. There are some that can, but
yes,
they are the very few ones. And it's a policy that undermines the unit cohesion and integrity.
Why? I mean, Richard, I understand that in terms, perhaps, of physical strength, women are very rarely going to be equal to men. But I want to ask you this question, because, you've served for a quarter of a century in the US military. Why is a gay person perhaps unsuitable to frontline duty?
From what I've experienced, it's the disruption they create because they cannot control themselves. The majority of them, I would say.
Really?
There are others who can, yeah, who will come on to, if it's a man and he wants to come on to another man, that interrupts the cohesion and the integrity of the unit, because nobody trusts him, nobody likes him.
Okay. So, but I mean, that's your view on the... So do you see the transgender issue as being an extension of the problem that you perceive?
It's just an extension of it, and it just exacerbates the problem. And the military, we aren't paying the military to have sex change operations. We're paying them to be a defensive force.
I mean, I do completely understand the point, and I think, one wonders at times whether one or two of these things that Obama put in place, actually were, in a sense, poison pills for who came afterwards. I completely get the point about money being spent on this, and I think vast majority of people, Richard, would agree with you on that point. Do you think the American military as a whole will think Trump is right today?
I think as a whole, many of them do, and I think many of them have, like myself, they bit their tongue for a long time with all the politically correct training we had to have, and it was just part of the serving. But I would say the vast majority of the military feel the same way I do.
Richard, I'm going to ask you this very direct question. I mean, do you yourself hold prejudice against gay and transgender people per se?
No, I don't. They have the right to believe what they want. Being transgender is a belief. It's not a right. It's just a personal belief. It is their religion, and I don't have anything against them for believing what they want to believe. It's when they try to push it on others that it violates our liberties and our rights of conscience.
Richard, strong words from Kansas there. Richard, thank you very much for your call. Well, Richard, with some views there that I think in the modern world would be considered to be highly controversial, but he said it and he meant it. And this actually, it's interesting. We don't have these sort of debates with the same level of passion that they have in America. America actually very divided strongly on these big social and moral issues. David in Hackney, Trump right or wrong?
Oh, he's definitely wrong, Nigel. Hi.
Hi. So is it prejudice or is he just wrong, or both?
It's absolute prejudice. I mean, to turn around and single out this group of people saying they're going to cost a fortune to the American army. I mean, they all have to pass a fitness test before they're accepted. So if they pass that test, then they should be able to go into the army. And if we're talking about the cost of it, all America would have to do in any current theatre of war they're raining down cruise missiles is just save back on 3 or 4, and the cost is covered.
Well, that may... I don't think that argument works, David, because I think,
I understand. I don't think there's a cost, because most people in America have private health care. They get their sex change operation done privately. They're not going to the military just for the military to finance their sex change. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No, David, I don't get that. I think most young... I mean, let's remember that most people that serve in the military are very young in years. Few of them will come from affluent backgrounds. So I think the point about cost is a valid one, although, David, where I do think you're right, is that as a percentage of the overall defence budget, it's probably very small.
Oh, very small. I'd like to comment also on the guy from Kansas that was just on.
Yes.
Where he says that, gay people in the military are causing, huge disruption because they're always going to try it on with another guy or something like that. I really do think this is a bit of wishful thinking. Most gay people stick to themselves and do what they're doing. Nobody would know they were gay unless somebody told them. Do you understand? I think that's real paranoia.
Well,
the Americans are a bit, bigotry when it comes to, gay people. They treat them terribly.
Americans have very strong social opinions on both sides of this divide, David. Far more, I think, than we ever have done in this country, and that is true. Anyway, David, you've made the point that it's outright prejudice. You think the cost is tiny, and you think in terms of disruption, people, a few thousand people having an operation is a pretty small disruption, David, yeah?
Yeah, I think it's a disruption. I just think, it's out of order.
All right.
Nigel, really do.
No, David, listen, mate, you couldn't be clearer. Thank you very much indeed. Some strong opinions. Nikki in Farnborough, good evening.
Hello.
Hello. So has Trump got this completely wrong, as our last caller suggested?
I think he has. I think that if somebody is transgender, if they're transitioning from male to female or female to male, as long as they can attain the physical standards, their mental capacity is exactly the same. I don't think that the government should pick up the tab
No. I think, Nikki, from what I'm seeing, nobody yet has texted or tweeted in to say that actually the government should pick up the tab. I think there is some agreement on that, and that perhaps what Trump might achieve through this is a law change through Congress on that particular part of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's another progression as well. I mean, I just told your lady that I spoke to, I was discharged from the Navy for being gay back in 1994.
Wow.
And things have now progressed on. And the ironic thing was there were 4 ladies in our intake, and I wanted to be a career Navy person, and the other 3 wanted to get their training and then go off and work in the private sector and earn more money, which they did.
What was that? Nikki, just remind people, because there'll be a lot of young people listening to you right now who say, what do you mean she was kicked out of the Navy for being gay? What was the argument that was given that it was wrong for you to stay in the Navy as a gay person?
There were 2 arguments that were particularly pertinent to the branch that I was in. I was in intelligence, and one of the arguments was if you were potentially found out to be gay, you could be bribed, like because of the days of Philby and people like that.
So blackmail, basically.
Yeah, blackmail.
Yes.
And also that it's bad for morale, blah blah blah. But then you had the same thing. I was part of the first intake of women on board the warship that I served on board.
Yes. So
and there was that argument for women not turning.
You've been in the social front lines in many, many ways, haven't you? Do you?
Yes.
Nikki, let me just ask you: do you, looking back on your experiences of all of this, do you feel bitter about it, or do you just think, good luck to those who followed on?
For a while, yeah, I was a bit bitter about it, but I think, it goes with progression. Everything to do with the whole sexuality thing. There's progression, at all stages. The 60s, it was illegal for guys, blah, 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 and it goes on. And this is just another progression with the transgender thing. I think if you're mentally able as a woman and then you trans to a male, you're still going to be mentally able, and vice versa, if it's male to female. So as long as you meet the criteria that is set for where you're transing to, I don't see what the problem is.
So it's about physical and mental capacity. OK, Nikki?
Yeah, physical and mental.
Nikki, great phone call. Well, some fascinating phone calls there. Some strong views on both sides of this divide. More in a moment. For now, you're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:30 and time for the news with Moira Alderson.
Charlie Gard's parents have agreed he can spend his final days in a hospice, but they're still in dispute with doctors about his care plan. The terminally ill baby's mum and dad have until midday tomorrow to find medics to continue his life support. Otherwise, it will be withdrawn soon after he's moved. Donald Trump says medical costs and potential disruption are the reasons why he's banned transgender people from serving in the US military. Equality campaigners say it's a huge step backwards. The government says it will take immediate steps to stop charging employment tribunal fees and refund those who've paid them. It's after the Supreme Court ruled that payments for taking claims were unlawful. LBC weather mostly dry and clear for the south and east tonight. Some blustery showers across the west and northwest. An overnight low of 14 degrees.
LBC Travel. Good evening, I'm Andy Lake. Well, starting off in Surrey, the M25 clockwise exit slip is closed at junction 9 for Leatherhead because a car's overturned. The inside lane on the main carriageway is also shut, causing queues back to Headley on the approach. Coming the other way, also looking very slow. A couple of things to look out for in central London. Falcon Road is closed southbound in Battersea between the High Street and Patience Road because a water main has burst. Great Portland Street in Fitzrovia is also closed southbound for emergency repairs between Mortimer Street and Oxford Street. Into the West Midlands, the northbound M6 is slow between Fife for Castle Bromwich and the Spaghetti Junction. A lane is shut to recover a breakdown, leaving queues on the approach. And as for the rails, Thameslink are still delayed between Blackfriars and Sevenoaks tonight after a string of issues. For more real-time traffic updates, go to lbc.co.uk.
This is LBC.
News just in. An alien spacecraft has fallen from the sky and landed in Little's car park, so it's closed until NASA get here.
Madam, come with us, please.
Get off me!
Some will do whatever it takes to get to Lidl first. This Thursday, there's offers on DIY, men's fashion and more while stocks last. Lidl. Big on quality, little on price. Subject to availability and may vary selected stores.
Landlords. Direct Line guarantees to beat other insurers' renewal premiums for the same cover. Can your insurance do that? Switch to Direct Line Landlord. New customers only. Qualifying criteria apply. Underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
Get up to £100 trade-in for your old mattress.
in the Hams's bed and mattress sale, plus up to £200 extra off our ticket prices. Free local delivery, free mattress protector, even a free pair of pillows. Get a perfect night's sleep with our best ever offers. Hams's Sleep Centres, Beckenham, Bexley Heath, Leatherhead, New Malden and Wallington, and hamses.co.uk. Conditions apply.
Oak Furnitureland's month-end sale must end Sunday. There's quality, real hardwood furniture to suit every room and every home. We've a choice of hardwoods including natural, rustic and mango, with modern and traditional styles, plus beautifully finished painted collections to choose from. And don't miss our exclusive selection of sofa designs. So whether it's the whole room or a statement piece you're looking for, visit us in-store or online at oakfurnitureland.co.uk. Our month-end sale must end Sunday.
When you hear a PPI commercial like this, you think, I wonder if I ever did have PPI. And maybe I should claim with the deadline being announced. And then you think, oh, but I'm not sure where my paperwork is. So you end up doing nothing. Well, here's the easiest thing in the world to do. Just text the word EASY to 60777 and the claims guys will conduct a free search to discover if you ever had PPI. And then you can decide to pursue the claim yourself or get the claims guys to do it for you. Text EASY to 60777 now.
The claims guys. Battersea, Chelsea, Elephant and Castle, Kensington, King's Cross.
So far this year, over 1,600 keen buyers have registered with My London Home, all looking for property in central London. Property just like yours.
Mayfair, Pimlico, Soho.
So if you're serious about selling, go to mylondonhome.com now to get your instant online valuation.
Victoria, Waterloo.
mylondonhome.com. Passionate about property.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Trump gets tweeting, and we learn that transgender people are to be banned from the US military because it is too expensive and it leads to disruption. They are the arguments the president has put out there, and I'm asking you, is he actually right about this in terms of military efficiency, or is it just old-fashioned prejudice? But briefly, I must go back to the Charlie Gard case, which we spoke about with great length last night. There has now been some degree of agreement between Great Ormond Street and between Charlie's parents that he will now spend his final days in a hospice. So the endless legal fighting and wrangling is over. And I, last night, made my view at the end of the show very clear, in very strong terms, that I think actually it should be the right of the parents to make these decisions and not that of the medical establishment and the state. But I just want to sort of counterbalance that. There was an article today by a fellow called Ian Kennedy in The Guardian, and he argues strongly the other way. He says that you have to recognise that children do not belong to their parents, that parents do not have rights regarding their children, they only have duties. So I just, in the interest of balance, want to show there are some pretty powerful arguments on both sides of this debate. Now, back to President Trump. So General Mattis had decided to delay for 6 months transgender people joining the military, perhaps in quite large numbers, because he wanted to find out more evidence as to whether it would be a good or a bad thing. And he said himself, the fact I've delayed this isn't in any way going to affect the outcome. I just need more time. And yet, we're only a month in to the 6-month delay, and the president said this. And I think one of the problems, perhaps, is that we're not hearing the voice of the military. Because when the Pentagon were asked today to comment on this, they said, ask the White House, and General Mattis is on summer vacation. Eve, from Team Trump, she tweets and says, US military generals agree with Trump. That's enough for all Americans to agree. Well, Eve, that's fine, but we actually, the president, I think, to reinforce the point that he's made, does now need the voice of the generals. Otherwise, he's going to find himself back fighting, a really, really big war. And one or two of you, Dee in Kent says this could result in a great deal of legal cases and costs and delays. Well, Dee, you may well be right. And we're already hearing, as I say, not just John McCain, but others too in the Republican Party who are a bit nervous about this. So the voice of the generals, I think, is what Trump needs right now to back up his case, because there are plenty of others on the other side saying that he's wrong. Ralph in Immingham, up in northern Lincolnshire. Ralph, good evening.
Hi, Nigel. Hope you're okay.
Oh, well, I'm okay, but I'm fascinated by the passion that this particular series of tweets from the President has led to. What's your view on this, Ralph? Is it, in terms of military efficiency, the right thing to do, or is it just old-fashioned prejudice?
It's not prejudice. It's politicians interfering with operational effectiveness. This whole problem began when Obama made this announcement, and Trump's reaction to this is kind of understandable. I wouldn't say it's the best way of going about it, but it is understandable.
So that's because, and Ralph, just to remind our listeners again, up until late summer last year, transgender people were banned from serving in the US military. So it's a very recent thing, isn't it?
Yes, it is, but my mind comes back to when I was in the RAF, and this experiment was carried out with a commissioned officer who was transgender. And the problem was that they did go through the operation, and that was fine. We all behaved ourselves. We didn't do anything about it. We just went along with it. And after the procedure, they were no longer, and as some people have already said, as long as these people are physically capable of carrying out the job, no one cares. But because of the political pressure to try and make this successful, this person was carried on doing their job, even though they were no longer able to pass the fitness test.
And they weren't able to pass the fitness test because of the operation, hormones, whatever. Yeah.
I don't know the specifics, but they moaned about it a lot, and they threatened legal action and did all sorts of things. And that's the environment they're living in. They're living with a threat of upsetting the politicians and facing legal action if they don't wave the little liberal flag and say they're doing the right thing and that they're reflecting society perfectly.
Because there's a similar debate here, Ralph, isn't there, about women in the front line? You know, should women serve in the front line? And it seems to me that perhaps whether it's women serving in the front line or transgender people, surely the first basis has to be that regardless of sex, that if people are to be particularly in frontline combat roles, they've all got to achieve a certain physical and mental standard. Wouldn't that be the fairest way of doing it?
Yeah.
So
I've met women who are quite capable of fighting in the front line, who scare the living daylights out of me. So yeah, absolutely.
Right. So you've got no problem with that, and you had no problem with gay people serving in the RAF.
No, got a lot of mates when I was in the RAF who were gay. They were absolutely fine. Operationally, I trust my life to them.
Right. Yep. But in this particular case, this officer transitioned and then physically wasn't up to the job.
But the politicians made them stay. They put pressure on the officers on doing it, and that has a massive effect on trust. And if you can't sit there and you can't joke about things and you can't be honest in the armed forces, it's like the emergency services. You've got to be able to have free banter. And if people are scared of what they're saying about anything, they won't be able to communicate with their commanding officers. Their trust will break down, and it's the political interference that impairs operational ability to do the job right.
But Ralph, there was a time when people would have said that it was impossible for gay people to integrate in the RAF, and that it wouldn't work, and as you say, you know, you had some good friends there and people that you would trust your life with. Is it possible that this whole transgender issue sorts itself out a few years down the line and doesn't become a problem?
There are many, many guys who are in the armed forces who hid the fact that they were gay, who did the job perfectly, who made everyone look silly afterwards. I doubt this is going to be the same situation. I know guys who literally hid the fact that they were gay when they were in the armed forces. Yeah. One guy was in the parachute regiment who I had the honour of meeting when I was at Bryce Norton, and they proved quite clearly they were more than capable of doing an excellent job. I'm not convinced this will have the same effect because it's so in your face.
So you feel that Trump is perhaps right?
He is absolutely right at the moment, especially with the American armed forces. I've worked with them before. This wouldn't go down well with them. We would get through it. We would just weather the storm as we always do. But for the Americans, you've got a lot of people in there. A lot of them have very interesting ideas and beliefs that we don't hold on to as much nowadays in this country. But I think it would be incredibly unwise to breach the trust of communication that exists between troops and their commanding officers.
Ralph, you've made your point very, very well indeed. Very strong points. And I think what Ralph says backs up my earlier point, that for the President to get support for this, he's going to need the generals to start saying similar things. On Facebook, Rob says, if they are willing to serve and fight for their country, why not? Ben says, there could be non-stop court cases because soldiers would never call them anything but men. Ben making the point in a sense that Ralph was just making. Satpal says, let's just get on with the job, folks. Let's consider cost efficiency and the fact of allowing those to serve. Lynn says, Trump has a point about cost. What if some transgender people may have joined the military just to get treatment? That would not be a good idea. I don't know whether you'd join up and face the threat of being shot at just to have that operation. I don't know. I'm not sure there'll be many in that category. Corin from Box Hill in Surrey. Good evening, Corin.
Good evening.
So tell me, is Trump doing this out of prejudice, or are the generals going to come out and back him up?
I think there is an underlying prejudice that it seems to be infecting the whole of America at the moment. In various states in America, they're challenging the need for trans children to go into toilets that they want to.
It's a big row over there, isn't it? Yeah.
It's a big row, and it seems to be a trend that's moving towards the more negative, where we're because I'm trans myself, so
right.
I'm your first voice, a trans voice.
You are, and I'm very pleased that you're part of this debate. I really am.
And it's the sense of trans people do have a lot of bullying, a lot of vilification to experience. What we don't want to do is experience even more in the military, because although I'm not a military person, I'm just an ordinary Joe Public. I feel that if someone is going to do that, they when they become who they truly need to be, like I am now, who I truly need to be, they become much more efficient in their self
because they're happier in themselves. But Corin, as you know, the threats of people who are different in any way, the threats of Mickey taking, getting to a level where it becomes, really quite nasty bullying. I mean, there are a lot of Americans who hold very, very small c conservative views, very strong religious views. Do you wonder whether trans people in the US military might not have a very hard time?
I think any trans person is going to have a hard time, but does that actually mean that we don't have to do it? What we need to do is change. As individuals, we have to evolve into something new, where our first thought is not to bully someone, and that's what they're doing over there. They're choosing to bully and vilify rather than let's have a bit of compassion for someone who's different to me. Let's find out what they really think, what they really feel about what they're doing. Right. And that's not just trans people, that's for everyone. If someone over the road there is different to me, let's go over and ask them what they do for a living or something. Find out who they are.
Do you think, if we had this conversation, Corin, in 5 years' time, do you think the US military would have grown accustomed to this and this would have sorted itself out?
I think society needs to sort itself out before the military will, because the military is made up of people who are in society. So, as I said, the society has to evolve into something different, where our first thought is compassion rather than getting thought out.
Corin, that may take a lot longer than 5 years, it seems to me. But I don't know. Corin, listen, thank you ever so much for that call. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC, and it's 7:45.
Coming up at 8 on LBC, Clive Bull.
Campaigners say the government's clean air plans don't go far enough and should include a scrappage scheme and clean air zones. Do you agree?
Clive Bull on LBC.
Want a brand new apartment starting from just a £7,500 deposit? Come to Galliard Homes and purchase your new home with Help to Buy from just £150,000. Live in dynamic space close to stations that connect you to central London. Plus, we fully furnish your new home free of charge. Call us on 0203 770 6300 to hear about our range of incentives to help you get on the ladder. Visit galliardhomes.com. That's galliardhomes.com. Live the lifestyle with Galliard.
Relocating your company's office is likely to be one of the most expensive events in the history of your business. The consequences of getting it wrong simply don't bear thinking about. Speak to Maris Interiors, who've been designing, fitting out and transforming workplaces for over 3 decades. Book your free consultation, attend a free seminar, or get a free guidebook. Go to officerelocation.co.uk. Maris. Workplace design experts.
She was a bubbly, fun-loving person. I think she went to school to socialise rather than learn. She was a bit of a wild child. The last words I said to her when she left the house was, "I love you and enjoy your evening and don't be late home." But she never come home.
Heart disease can kill when you least expect it. But with the British Heart Foundation's research, there is hope. Donate £3 at bhf.org.uk.
Does your computer feel slow or sluggish? Is your screen full of unwanted pop-ups? Your computer could be under attack from the inside. Today's viruses and malware are designed to get past your antivirus software and hide in your system. But there's a simple solution, the Fix Me Stick. Fix Me Stick is the future of computer virus removal. Plug it in and it takes the viruses, ransomware, spyware, trojans and other malware out. Pick up a Fix Me Stick today to keep your computer fast and clean. Available at Asda Supercentres and on Amazon.
Have you discovered the award-winning new Citroën C3? With integrated connected cam Citroën, 36 bi-tone colour combinations, Apple CarPlay and 3 years free servicing. Why not discover it for yourself in showrooms now or search new C3. Citroën. Features available on selected models. 3-year offer ends after 36 months or if 35,000 miles were exceeded, whichever occurs soonest. Terms and conditions apply at participating dealers only.
The Nigel Farage Show. Text 84850.
As we speak, there is a press conference going on in the White House. But, of course, it's not Sean Spicer anymore, who we've watched and enjoyed so much, whether we agreed or disagreed with him over the course of the last 6 months, because he's gone. It's now Sarah Huckabee Sanders. So she is about to face the press on this issue, and that'll be very, very interesting indeed. Trump has said no transgender people must serve in the US military because it's going to cost too much money in terms of medical bills and lead to great disruption. And I'm asking you whether he's right in terms of military efficiency or whether this is just good old-fashioned, prejudice. There's no other word. Would the cost of hormones be to maintain their gender? Would the US military have to provide this? Either you're fit enough to fight or you're not. Interesting show, says Teresa in Hornchurch. Teresa, I don't know. What I do know is that Obama said they would pay for the transition, and that must include the hormones as well, it seems to me. Political correctness has no place on the battlefield, I get on Twitter. Here we go again, trying to undo everything Obama accomplished. Well, in some ways that's right, and there are a lot of things that Obama did in that last year that many Republicans feel were just plain wrong, and this, not for all Republicans, but for many, is one of them. Martin in Huntingdon, is Trump right, or is it just prejudice?
Good evening, Nigel. I believe it's sheer prejudice, and a lot of it will be shared by the generals as well. I actually worked with the US military for 4.5 years in Europe back in the 60s.
Yeah.
And I found the Navy particularly was far more heavily prejudiced as regards black and white people serving together if they became friends. And I was actually witness to this.
Yeah.
In the same way that I've also witnessed, I believe it was Dave who phoned earlier, when he said about they don't try it on. That's totally incorrect. I was actually witness to that as well, where the Shore Patrol was actually called because one rating woke up with a shriek when he found somebody was molesting him. And that the person, the molester, was actually caught. Thankfully, he survived. They were trying to throw the rope over the pipe to lynch him. And at the same time, he was caught on the next flight out from Sicily, from Catania, where I was working, to Naples, and he was sent out directly to Brooklyn, New York, where he received a dishonorable discharge. So, it does happen. But generally speaking, I mean, what difference does it make if somebody is a man or a woman, if they're serving and they can perform their job properly? I think that if somebody is going in and they want to change, that I would disagree with, because I think that it would build up a certain amount of distrust. But if they're already transgender, I can't see what the difference is.
Well, in some ways, Martin, that's what Trump's saying. If you look at Trump's words, he's saying it's unacceptable for the US military to pay for people to transition, and that of itself is a disruption. In a sense, if you look literally at Trump's words, you're looking at those that have joined the military and have decided to change whilst they're in. It doesn't fully explain what his attitude would be to people perhaps who wanted to join and had already been through a stable, as it were, transition. But, I don't know the answer to that.
In that respect, I think it's quite... But I can understand that because of the cost.
Yes.
Can I... Just one other issue that came up, and that is, I remember at one time, well, it was before my time, when they used to say black people would not be able to serve in the Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't able to do the job as a pilot. And yet when they had the Mustangs escorting the bombers over Germany, the most successful aircraft, and I'm not black myself, I'm white, I'm also... I'm married and everything. I have no homosexual feelings whatsoever. So I've got to get that cleared out the way, first of all. But they were so successful in defending the US Air Force, the bombers.
So you think, Martin, basically things move on, society moves on, prejudice breaks down, and provided the US military is not lumbered with cost or disruption, you think this will sort itself out in time, yeah?
I believe so. Yeah. I really do.
Martin, thank you very much indeed for your point. Tracy, in Hastings, in Sussex, is Trump right or wrong?
To a certain extent, I think he's wrong. But I don't think... I think the actual problem is Trump himself. He's not progressive in his approach. He's not progressive in his attitude. He's quite backward in his thought process. So you're never going to get anywhere while he's in office. And I'm kind of wondering, you can put a little phone call in and have a word and tell him to sort his life out, to be honest with you. But, I mean, it should be down to the person. Can they do the job? I'm ex-military myself.
Yep.
I got kicked out of the army. I was part of the first intake of girls to join the men's army. We hit prejudice. I was part of the first intake of girls to join the Mobile Brigade. I hit prejudice. I was part of the first set of girls to serve with 264 SAS in Hereford. We hit prejudice. Then I was kicked out.
Why were you kicked out, Tracy?
Whatsoever, because I'm gay.
Simple as
and
that.
Again, it was on the base exactly the same as your other caller.
Yep.
I was about to go into theatre. My bags went off to Bosnia. I was escorted out the front gate and told to go home.
And is that because you were potentially going to be blackmailed because you were gay, or what was the reason given?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was part of the Queen's regulations at the time.
Yeah, it was.
To be gay. However, if you look at cause such as the RLC, absolutely full of gay men and gay women. It depended what corps you're in as to the level of prejudice that you were exposed to. But because of the situation that I was in with essentially serving with an awful lot of men, my staff sergeant actually had a bet with my troop corporal that he wouldn't be able to shag me within 2 weeks of joining the troop.
Right.
So,
this is before the watershed, Tracy, but go on.
I know, but I'm just trying to get the feeling across here. It's not... The gay people aren't the problem. It's other people's attitude towards the gay people. And the only way you're going to get through that is by education and exposure.
Right.
Trying to help people.
And we've done it with gay people in the services, and you think the trans issue will sort itself out in time, yeah?
No, I don't think it will sort itself out. I think it needs a common sense approach. Yes, I agree to a certain extent that people shouldn't join the military just to have the operation. I agree with that to a certain extent.
Sure.
However, what you do have is no self-respecting person would put themselves through that in order just to have that operation. They're putting their lives on the line.
Well, of course they are. They might get shot at. Tracy, I thank you very much indeed for another really fascinating phone call. So, Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee-Sanders is giving this press conference. Let's hear what she had to say on the Trump pronouncement.
The president's expressed concern since this Obama policy came into effect, but he's also voiced that this is a very expensive and disruptive policy. And based on consultation that he's had with his national security team, came to the conclusion that it erodes military readiness and unit cohesion, and made the decision based on that. It's not meant to be anything more than that, and it's simply about, obviously it's a very difficult decision. It's not a simple one, but the president feels that it's the best one for the military.
There we are. So that debate is going to run and run and run. And Rhiannon says to me on Facebook, this isn't about efficiency. It's another excuse to have a go at people you don't understand. Fear turns to anger. Fear of what you don't understand. Rhiannon, thank you for that. Well, it's been a big debate. Is Trump right? Is he wrong? Well, hey, on the cost issue, clearly he's right, although that cost and that disruption amongst an army that in total, with its reserves, is 2 million men and women, is probably fairly minor. I really do want to hear what the generals and the Pentagon have actually got to say about this and what their experience has been over the course of the last few years. But I'm going to make another point tonight, another military point. After the show last night, I went to watch the film Dunkirk. And I have to say, I'm not sure that I enjoyed it. Some of it was pretty harrowing to watch. But I really do think, that as many young people as possible in this country ought to go and look at it. And just to understand how bleak life was back in 1940 for their great-grandparents' generation, and think themselves pretty lucky. Whatever our problems are today, there is nothing compared to them. You've been listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. I'm back tomorrow evening from 7. Coming up at 10, it's Ian Collins, but up next, it's Clive Bull.
Thank you, Nigel.